we try the video on, please? Hello, Marina. Can you hear us?
Hello, I hear you very well. Thank you for allowing me to participate to this roundtable in remote.
Thank you so much, Marina. Okay, thank you so much.
So please take a seat. Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion, My Vision and Execution, the Mind of a Transformative Leader. So joining us today are Dr. Thierry Abribat, founder and former CEO of Amoli Pharma, Dr. Joe Yao, partner at Sofinova Biovelocity Strategy, Dr. Fabrice Cherokee, CEO of a Farming Group, Dr. Jacques Volkmann, Global Head of External Innovation at Sanofi, and joining us online, we have Professor Marina Cavassana, Director of Biotherapy Clinical Center at Imagine Institute. And the discussion will be moderated by Dr. Brosco, Susanna Brosco, Chief Business Officer at Integrated Biosciences. So I will pass the word for Dr. Brosco. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this panel, Marrying Vision and Execution, the Mind of a Transformative Leader. Before we get started, maybe a couple of words on why this topic matters, especially in the room full of people relatively early in their professional careers. In my view, in biotech, big visions are not rare. We'll be talking about what separates people who make an enduring impact on the industry and on the patients from the ones who don't. What happens after the vision? How do you choose between projects that you fund now, that you take on, versus the projects that you decide to cut? How do you transform a company when things change? How do you take your people and your team on the journey with you? How do you make sure that they buy into your vision? I think, I would really want this panel to be a two-way conversation between the panelists and you as our audience. Let's make sure that you get the most out of this conversation. So if the panelists who've lived this tension that I just described, from different seats, right, as biotech founders, as academic founders, as people who represent pharma, as people who fund founders from VC seats and from pharma external innovation seats, if they say anything that sparks a question in your head, please raise your arm. And let's make sure that this is a two-way conversation and you make the most out of it. So without further ado, I would invite our panelists to just briefly introduce yourselves. Thierry, on to you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Very happy to see a lot of young people with a lot of ambition here in the room. I'm Thierry. I'm a scientist by training. I've done all my career in the biotech industry, very briefly in pharma, but not too long. To start with, I've been executive in several biotech companies in Canada and then back in Europe, based in Lyon, actually. And then in 2027, I had the privilege to be able to do what I really wanted to do, which is to build companies, biotech companies from scratch. From 2007 to 2024, I've built 3 companies that were somewhat different from one to the other. And I was very lucky to to exit them all. I mean, they were all acquired by other biotechs or by the pharma. So happy to share a bit of this experience with you today.
Great.
Good morning, I'm Fabrice Chouraki. I'm the CEO of Farming. Yeah, you can hear me, yes. I'm the CEO of Farming. I guess like you, I am passionate about progressing medical sciences and bringing innovation to patients. I believe we are living in an amazing time for science and human science specifically. I think that technology and computation are revolutionizing the way we understand human biology, and we are really on the eve of a new stream of breakthrough innovations. Personally, I had the chance to work in so-called big pharma for a bit more than 2 decades. That took me to work on different continents, different type of roles, spanning from clinical development, commercial leadership. Before I joined a venture capital fund in Boston called Flagship Pioneering. I was a partner there as well as the CEO of one of our portfolio company. It's been an amazing opportunity to discover another side of our industry. And most recently, I took the helm of a European-based biotech company specialized in rare disease called Farming. So really happy to be part of this panel.
Great. Marina, we'll come to you next.
Thank you, Susanna, and good morning to everyone. So I am a little bit different. I have a little bit different profile between this amazing participant to the round table. I am a pediatrician and a professor in hematology, and I have a PhD in the lymphohematopoietic system. I spent all my career in academia, starting from creating from scratch what is now a huge department of biotherapy innovative treatment, department which is able to go from discovery to the bedside and beyond to try to obtain the market authorization for ETMP for rare disease. In the middle of my trajectory, I have also founded a biotech called Smartimmune, but in a very difficult time for investment during the COVID. And during this pandemic, the vision changed very rapidly with the need to have a very high investment in public health. And so finally, the company has been sold out to a USA-based biotech who has brought only the RD program, and I have the chance to take off my clinical protocols to continue to run promising innovative treatment for rare disease, and I am continuing to try to work on this difficult field.
Great. Jacques, a brief introduction to yourself.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. So my name is Jacques Volkmann, Global Head of External Innovation for Sanofi R&D. I joined the pharma industry a while ago, post my studies. I'm a virologist by training, a pharmacist and a virologist by training. Worked for a Dutch company during 5, 6, 7 years, actually, mainly in the biological field, so developing hormones and biological products. Then I joined, that was not Sanofi at the time, but the Sanofi family, actually, working in the vaccine field for more than 20 years, developing vaccines, trying to develop vaccines, actually. And then I moved to the global pharma organization to actually take the lead on the external innovation activities. What does that mean? That means to actually interface with academic institutions, biotechs, consortium, a lot of external partners to try to bring innovative solution in-house to support our portfolio. That's as simple as that. And of course, this means working in the US, in Europe, and in Asia, China, and that was mentioned by Monsieur Mérieux this morning, actually earlier today. Asia is booming, and particularly China. So happy to be with you.
Thanks. Joel, a couple of words from you and your background.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Zhizhong Yao. I'm a partner at Biotech Strategy at Sofinnov Partners. Sofinnov Partners is a life science capital fund headquartered in Paris. We also have offices in London and Milan today. So I precise Biotech Strategy because we have different investment vehicles dedicated to different stage of therapeutics, what we call human health, as well as planetary health solutions. So all the way from target discovery, target validation, to pivotal trials, and even commercialization. And so, yeah, it's absolutely a great pleasure to be here in Lyon. And I'm an early investor in one of the Lyon-based ADC companies called MabLink, which indeed is the fruit of a public research out of Lyon. And then we have invested with other French and European investors and successfully have handed over the technology and the product to the hands of Eli Lilly, who is now currently advancing the product in phase 3 studies. So, yeah, so looking forward to the discussion today. And yeah, thanks for the invitation and organization of this great event.
Thanks, Joe. Look, so I won't make it very easy for the panel. I'll get us started with a broad, open-ended question. And maybe, Fabrice, I'll come to you first. You know, what makes a vision good? What makes it timely? What does it mean to have the right vision from the start?
I think when you think about vision, you think about the what if in science. You know, what if you could turn your own cell in personal protein factories? What if you could harness that technology? I think connecting both the vision and the execution is also about thinking about the so what. And it's easy to fall in love with the science. The science has so much to offer. To be passionate about the what if, but the so what is as important. At the end of the day, the so what will really makes an impact. Makes an impact in terms of progressing the science, makes an impact in terms of making a meaningful difference for patients, makes an impact for shareholders, because obviously without money, there's no way you can progress the science. So this ability to connect the what if and the so what for me are absolutely paramount. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's a little bit like thinking about the destination and the direction and why we are on that journey. But these are aspects that we have to factor in.
Thank you. And I think, you know, it's not that easy to separate the vision from the execution, and I think you've started to allude to that, but we'll be coming back to that question and that tension or the relationship many times during the panel today. But maybe before we move to that that notion of, you know, vision versus execution, I would just want to ask Thierry about his vision. The vision that he had when he was building when you were building your latest company, Amulet. It seemed to me that, you know, from the get-go, you had a very big vision of building a fully integrated biopharma rather than, you know, choosing to focus on an individual asset, building that asset to an exit. You started with a very bold vision. Tell us about, you know, your thinking, what made you confident that that was the vision you wanted to base the company on, How was that process? What made you confident in having that vision? To what extent did it impact on the successful outcome?
Yeah. So this put me back in 2018 when I decided to build a third company. First of all, I would like to say that you have to use the word vision with caution. Don't go and see an investor and tell them I have a vision. You need to make a check on it. So that's not so simple. In fact, this vision needs to be supported by something, because the vision, I heard Alexandre not mentioning vision in his speech. He was talking about long-term view of the company. And I believe this looks more reasonable, but less exciting, but I think this is the truth. Basically, you start a company from scratch and you say, where would I like the company to be in 10 years, 10, 15 years from now? So this is what they used to call the industrial vision, that people have lost a bit because everything is very financially driven today. So back in 2018, the context is very important. I had just sold my second company, so I had built what they call a track record to investors. And for the third, and hopefully at that time I said it's going to be the last, I want to be as ambitious as I could. I wanted to build a larger biotech company based in Europe and in the US. I wanted to be fully international and build a company that could be sustainable to become a fully integrated company. So I told the investors I knew I want to build a commercial franchise, long-term commercial franchise for rare endocrine disorders. And I had nothing. There was me in Lyon and my future CSO in Boston. And this is what we wanted to do long-term, starting with one asset that was preclinical. So you need to be credible when you say that. The advantage of that is that you need to build a portfolio. And to me, it's very different between having a company that's single asset. You bear all the risk of the company on one single asset. This is your clinical data are fully binary for the company, die or survive. But when you build a portfolio, you have more chance to succeed. You build more value. You have more chance to be able to make an IP on the NASDAQ. This is technical. They don't like single asset companies. And so you need to show your ambition. This is where we can go. But we start and we'll discuss execution. That becomes, after that, by far the most important thing to do. But this costs more money. To build a company with like that, a portfolio company with a team based in Europe and the US, you need to raise quite a lot of money. And I was lucky enough that several, I would say a very nice syndicate of investors, mainly from Europe originally, followed that vision or long-term view based on a track record. I was surrounded by some people who have done it before too. And the marker to say we could do it was we were able to, with just two people, nothing in the portfolio, just one asset very early, we could close the Series A financing of 67 million euro. That in Europe was not too bad. And I could build a team to be able to execute the strategy, but we'll discuss that later.
Yeah. And you mentioned raising funding based on that vision. I'll go to Joel, whose day-to-day job involves hearing founders pitch you on their vision and their company. When you hear the pitches and you review the companies, how do you evaluate people's vision? What makes you go for one company versus another? And maybe just to bring it to the audience as well, just as you kind of talk about, what makes Sofinnova excited about certain companies and their visions. I don't know how many people here in the audience are thinking about starting a biotech one day. Do you want to raise your hands if that's something of interest and something on the cards? There's quite a few people, so
Yeah, then we can stay.
yeah, that's great. That's exciting for the industry. But Joel, you know, when one day, you know, some of our audience members want to come to you and pitch their vision, what's your advice?
Thank you for the question. I think I will share first of all very commonly said cliche in the investor community is that if you ask money, you get advice. If you ask advice, you get money. Is that it's a relationship foremost. It's not a pitch, meaning necessarily you know, you have only 5 minutes to convince me. The way at least at Sofinnova, we value human contact, and then we value relationships, especially trust, and then vulnerability, and the things we can discuss, and the things that you may see there is a missing piece in the puzzle. And then, so at Sofinnova, we value obviously science because we are a life science focused fund. So I wouldn't belabor the point of, you know, a list of technical things, right? Preclinical, clinical, development plan, competition, so on and so forth. There, I think the main value add from us, at least from my team, is to brainstorming with founders or potential founders and companies who even have raised significant money. Where do you position in the landscape of things? That elevated view is very important because you could have a piece of great discovery and science, and maybe there are other people doing the same or not. But what valuable is, what is that 50,000-foot view of positioning your technology and discovery, and how that's going to solve a problem that the societal faces, whether it's human health or planetary health. And then I come back to the people side, and I'll stop there. It takes absolutely a village. As we know, we need pharma partners, we need co-investors, we need, obviously, entrepreneurs, and therefore, we often take these meetings also as a way of curiously trying to figure out who are you? And we also present ourselves, who are we? Therefore, it's a two-way street of discovering each other through a technical discussion, I would say. And then so that you can think of building your company not only as achieving technical milestones and perhaps also capital formation, right? But that's the, you know, that's the exterior or external success criteria, if you will. But I would say the most important thing is, are you able to build a platform where you can aggregate talents around the world, where people are compelled to work with you? And then that's the ultimate success criteria in my view. And then we try to have that talent strategy from very early discussions. And we know that good science attracts good people, and good people attract good science.
Yeah. And Jacques, I think you're in, you know, you're in a very different seat because you represent external innovation and R&D at a large cap pharma. But similar to Joel, you evaluate startups and their technologies and their visions and whether they match, you know, what you look for at Sanofi. How do you judge the visions that these companies have? How important is the vision when you talk to startups, or do you mostly concentrate on the technical aspects of their programs?
So couple of comments in addition to what you just said, actually. Number one, vision and execution is completely interconnected, and there is no way to split those two important elements. And don't trust the people who are just telling you, okay, I'm a strategic thinker, and so what? So nobody cares about strategic thinkers if you are not able to implement what you want to do. So that's number one. So vision and executions are key, and vision, it's about obviously having where you want to go, so that's number one, but it's also about your capacity to transform your environment. And it's really so visionary people have that capacity to transform their environment. This is true for big pharma. So when you have a vision, whatever the topic, it's on your portfolio, your capacity, your headcounts, your whatever, your finance elements. you have actually to be in a transformative position, and that's not so easy actually. And then of course, the other side is the execution. You have to execute that vision, and you need to have that capacity to execute. So if you are in finance, or in marketing, you have to execute your P&L. If you are in R&D, you have to execute your portfolio, and so on and so forth. So don't disconnect those two notions, vision and execution. So coming back to your question about, startups coming or biotechs coming to a big pharma, and of course, it's important to understand where they want to go. That's number one. So it's their vision or long-term vision, but their capacity to execute what they want to do. And particularly in clinical development, if there is a clinical development side, actually, it's important to understand from them, from you, if you are part of. So did you think about your in details of your strategic roadmap, your clinical development plan, the roadblocks you're going to face, and so on and so forth? So to have a good sense of your capacity to tackle those different hurdles. And the vision, of course, is absolutely key. Understand your environment. Environment is changing very fast. A good idea is a good idea. That's it. So you need to bring much more than that, or good technologies. This is fun. Huh? I can tell you when you are in a seat or in Sofinova or in my situation, you see a lot of funny and sexy things. A lot of technologies. This is going to change your life. This is going to do this. This is going to do that. But an idea is an idea. This is not a product. This is not, at the end of the day, something we can support, serve a patient, company, to speed the process, to save money. That was mentioned this morning. This is extremely important when you bring an innovative solution in our business, in the healthcare business. You have to bring speed or to accelerate the different processes. It takes ages to develop a product. It costs a fortune to develop a product. We are talking about billions. So if you come and say, okay, this is going to be an addition to what you are doing already, so it's dead. It's over. The story is over. So you have to bring an innovative solution which is going to save time. Developments are long. It's a long journey, and to save time and money. That's important. So think about this when you are interacting with a pharma company.
Yeah, go ahead.
To build on what was just said, I mean, having had the chance to sit on both ends of the table, I think a vision is not a dream. It's very much about being able to articulate what your technology or your endeavor basically is going to produce, and it's very much about two aspects that were called out. I mean, first of all, the ability to gather a group of people that can realize the vision. Mm-hmm. As an investor, do I believe in this team? I think it's. I'm glad that you point that out, because it's a very, very important component. And the second aspect is about the differentiation, the value creation. It's so easy to fall in love with what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We are all scientists, or if not, very, very passionate about science. And it's very much about understand how we can harness the science to create a differentiated solution. Because if we take, for instance, a drug, if it's a Me-Too drug, which is coming out of an amazing drug discovery platform, it remains a Me-Too drug. And these aspects, in my opinion, are absolutely essential.
Thank you. I've noticed we have one question from the audience there, so we'll take it.
Nope.
Hey. Okay.
Oh, it works out.
I'm Katerina. I'm originally from Slovenia, currently working as a scientist in Germany, in Boehringer Ingelheim. And I want to follow up on your beautiful examples about capacity. So as a young scientist, where and how can we build capacity into towards showing once in the future that we are able to attract the talent, build a capacity about executing our ideas, and speeding up. Can you maybe elaborate on that a bit?
Who wants to take this one?
Alors, I'm not sure to have fully captured your question.
So maybe I capture it one way, so I'm not sure it's the right way, because I have been a scientist long time ago, I would say, at the bench. And first of all, take time to be good at science. Very fun is not just with a PhD that you're a super scientist. Take the time, because when you leave science, you know, the bench, you just to build a biotech or to be part of a biotech, usually you don't come back. So take the time to make your brain as a very good scientist who is curious and not just executing things, etc. And then my advice would be don't build a biotech company from scratch at that time. Take the time to join the biotech industry and learn, because it's very difficult to learn that at school. Drug development is very different from science on the bench, right? This is, you need to learn regulatory affairs. There are lessons, there's some education for that, you can do that, but you learn it in a biotech, and the big advantage of being in a biotech is that it's a small company, people are very much exposed to everything. So take time to spend a few years and become an executive in a biotech, being very operational. In a biotech, everybody does. You don't have people who just manage. The CEO does. You cannot accept to have people who are just managers. So you see a lot of people who have experience, who have done it, who's going, and you learn by doing that. It's a free MBA, and you pay to learn all that. And then if you really have the entrepreneurial spirit, that you don't invent that. It happens or it doesn't happen, then you build your company. And same for the leadership. It's more informal than in the large organization. And yeah, so, but take time. You're young, enjoy life, learn, and then deliver.
But maybe if I may, if your question was about attracting talents, actually, there is one important, I completely agree with what you said. I think it's a good experience to work within a startup or biotech, because you learn a lot. But coming into a big pharma, particularly in the R&D space, actually, those days, I think what is extremely important is to have, obviously, your scientific competencies. You are a toxicologist or biochemist or whatever, actually, that's good. But also having this capacity in data management. We call it in Sanofi a bilingual scientist, actually, which is someone with a competency, but also able to manage AI and all those new tools. This is extremely important. So as we speak, actually, 99% of the scientists we are bringing in are coming with those two arms, two competencies.
Thanks, Jacques. I must say, as somebody who actually, left academia relatively early and decided to start a company from scratch, I really echo, what you said, Thierry, because I've made many mistakes.
That's good.
And I learned from them. I would also, and again, this resonates so well. I think a career in biotech and biopharma industry can be a long one. You have time, so take your time to, at every step of the way, to just get the most out of all of your opportunities. And whether, if you're in science now, make sure you just squeeze out that opportunity. You spend the time to become the best scientist you can before you move on, and as you move on to the next steps. That really resonated. I know I'm not a panelist, but thanks, Thierry, because that I would echo that sentiment. So maybe back to you. Maybe I'll involve Marina, in this conversation. We're not forgetting about you. But tell us a little bit about, how you see. I think we've already moved to the question around the vision and execution. Tell us about your experience. How different is it in the academic environment, in the prescriber environment, versus what we've been hearing from these panelists that at least nowadays operate in the kind of for-profit, business environments. How different is the notion of having, the vision and executing well in academia?
It is a difficult question, but I am really surprised from the Thierry invitation to join a biotech for a few years before to found its own biotech. For me, from the discussion, there is something that is surprising because it reproduces a sort of two parallel life, or you are in academic field, or you are in biotech and you leave the academic. And I think this is the basis of the nowadays fragmentation between in Europe and of the disalignment between industry, funds, and academia. I think there is to rethinking about European sovereignty. We should have to propose a novel economic and development trajectories that could realign again academia and industrial thinking. So this is I agree with Thierry when he say, or no, with you, Susanna, when you say stay in academia as long as possible to really become a great scientist. But I think that the best of the more impactful discoveries still remain when the academia continue to make its work and there is a spin-off that is very early accompanied by the investment a great industry or found a small biotech. I don't know if somebody around the table would like to react to this comment.
Joelle, maybe you how do you feel about that kind of intersection between the academia and the business environment, and when, in your view and Sophie Nova's view, is the best time to kind of move between the two?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to share our point of view here. I think, especially at Biovelocita, so this is an acceleration fund which we closed at $200 million US, which put us as the largest incubator in Europe. And so the mission of this fund is to create new companies in Europe from scratch with connection with academic IP. And the unique point of our program is that we're not here to say no to anyone. We are here to work and nurture the relationship we have here in France, certainly, but also in Europe, and then to find path forward. And then we're trying to find reason to say yes rather than decline. We're trying to say and rather than it's the stop. So from that point of view, we are very eager to exchange with academic innovators from everywhere, including outside Europe. But of course, once we have built the company and what we call the 0 to 1 process, right? And then we needed investors outside Sophie Nova to build the companies further. And then we would need our partners at pharma organizations to also look at the technology that we have discovered. So, but my sincere thinking here is the academic founders, we don't need necessarily to feel obliged to say, oh, I needed to think about all the way to phase 2 or phase 3 or even sales, therefore that's kind of my pitch. In fact, that's never my ask. I never ask anyone from an academic world to say, what is my addressable population? What is my clinical development plan? And what is that? It's unfair because that's never your training. That's actually our value add. But what I do ask you is, please explain what is your technical innovation and what is your real discovery in terms of target biology and why. I like what you said, Fabrice, earlier. What if this is true? Then why this matters? But that, I'm sorry to say, that is in your camp, because I am not the inventor, I'm not the patent holder of your discovery, and it's up to you to communicate clearly. Not necessarily, I may or may not understand every single technical details, even though I would say I'm a scientist at heart, which is why I enjoy very much talking to scientists every day. But to really articulate the differentiation, the positioning, and then more importantly, come back to the execution. What would be an operational plan to de-risk this, maybe in vivo? Then let's get a prototype molecule, not necessarily a clinical candidate, because that's really ambitious, but let's get a molecule that is good enough to put in vivo. Let's put this with our trusted CRO partners who know what they're doing, and then benchmark with positive controls of standard of care and see whether this is drastically superior or not. If it's not, that's okay. And if it is, then we will go on. I think it's then we are able to, if you will, to move that academia, small biotech companies, investor, and pharma ecosystem where everybody is able to share their views and everybody is, sharing their input and then evaluation, then we will, and I'm very certain today, real discovery, no matter where it is today, it doesn't have to be in a certain geographic location. If you have discovered something genuinely interesting, people will pick up. Maybe people will not necessarily respond positively initially, but people eventually will.
We have a couple of questions from the audience.
Sorry, maybe...
Marina also wants to comment. Yes, go ahead. I'll remember about you guys. Go ahead, Marina.
No, sorry. Jack also has made a great collaboration with the University of Montpellier that could be mentioned in this great momentum of alignment between industry and academia. I don't know if Jack wanted to react on this.
Jack?
I can, of course. If you have the day.
Oh, it is a great example, I think.
No, but I think it's trying to link between what you said and the comment from Marina. I think the pharma industry, and that's the case for Sanofi, we are pretty agnostic actually when we are tackling the discussion with, I call it the external environment. It could be academia, it could be startups, biotech, institution, whatever. We are referring here to a collaboration we have actually with clinical environments, clinical centers in Montpellier, but we are setting the same, more or less the same structure in China, in Berlin, in Germany, and sooner than later in other places. So I think it's a must for us to be connected to the ecosystem and to the academic ecosystem or the medical ecosystem. That's a must. So one way or another. But at the end of the day, it has to bring value into our portfolio. So it's just collaboration just for collaboration. It has to bring value. And dealing with startup and biotechs, actually, it's important for us because innovation is coming from there. Of course, we have internal innovation, but there's a lot of innovation coming from the external environment. So same story here. We have to be connected with the environment. I completely agree. We are agnostic, both from a geographic perspective. So if there is a great innovation and in Singapore, let's go to Singapore. If it's in China, let's go to China. Of course, there is different regulations. There is some limitation from one area to another one. But at the end of the day, I think this is, if the innovation is great, I think there is ways to discuss and to partner.
All right. We're talking about big topics here, right? The vision and execution. And before I bring it back to the core of the panel, we'll take some questions from the audience. Let's start there in the middle.
Hi, my name is Pen. I'm a co-founder myself working in Germany. I have a question maybe more to Yao or Fabrice, that when we pitch to funding agencies, we found that there's a gap in their concept, which is oftentimes the biotech solution takes time to develop. It's not like IT industry where you can work your ass out and have the solution next month. Cell culture takes time, clinical trials takes time. So we often have to justify why we need the extension of time in our funding in order to achieve what we want to do. So I wanted to ask your perspective from the funding side. How do you evaluate a realistic outcome from a developing startup? And how could startups provide to boost the confidence or maintain the confidence from the funding side?
Please have a good try. I think you're raising a very important point, which is the time it takes to deliver a vision, in a sense. And specifically in science, as you said, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And that's why, as you engage with investors or various stakeholders, in my opinion, it's absolutely essential that you can show progress. So you may not get to your end result fast. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. But showing progress, consistent progress, is what matters. But here, we have to make the distinction between real progress and velocity. Velocity, for me, is very much about efforts, you know, like best efforts, in a sense, burning cash, you know. It doesn't necessarily translate into progress toward realizing the vision. And so your ability to articulate that you are making progress towards realizing your vision, that you have a stream of milestones between where you are today and where you want to get to, is absolutely essential to get everyone around you engaged. Because, as you said, time is slow in our area. I don't know if you have the same perspective.
I think, yeah, I could agree with what Fabrice was said, and I think that's why you have regular dialogue with investors, right? So then you also, not sure manage expectations is the right word, but I think good investors also want to help you. They want to know whether you're not succeeding because it's the resource allocation. Then it's not on you, it's actually on the investor side. And I think I'm very happy to share that over the years, Europe, there was a time when especially early stage capital, Europe was very like a dripping model compared to the US, right? So like that's very small amount, but that was a long time ago. But now you see Europe has many, many funds, just in France alone, have many funds of significant sizes and then the round size in Europe is also significantly increasing. And then that's on the early stage side. And of course, on the later stage side as well. And for example, the crossover strategy at Sofinnova and many other late stage capital in Europe that allow European companies to be seeded correctly, to grow, and then to deliver the fruit. And I know we have a very diverse audience here, but I think I can share with what's happening in France is that we have very generous also BPI grants and other funding strategy that give non-dilutive capital. In fact, you can access, which is actually exceptional. I don't really actually know any other places where you have this kind of support. Perhaps where you are, wherever you are, you can also tap into the non-dilutive capital that to create that right win-win, right? It's not only bringing innovation out of university, but also create jobs and many places around the world now, and there is huge support for that. So let's plan for success. So that's what I would say to your question.
Very briefly, if I may add, just from a founder and a CEO perspective, when you have existing investors or founders of your company, first of all, don't talk to them only when you need money. You have to keep them always, they always want to know where you stand and be transparent with them. And you show them a roadmap with the milestones. And don't overpromise. Because if you, we tend to overpromise, this is natural, because those guys, they put a lot of pressure on us. So then you overpromise, especially in terms of time, because time is money, right? You have fixed costs in your company. And then you overpromise and you don't meet your milestone, time and deliverable. And then they lose confidence. So don't overpromise, be transparent, and keep them aligned between themselves as well. Because if one of them begins to shake a bit, is going to contaminate the others. So it's a lot of work from the founder or CEO to constantly liaise with your existing investors.
Great point. I think overpromising, sometimes it's tempting, especially when you're early on in your career, kind of overpromising can be tempting, but it can also really undermine you in the longer term. And again, you know, like a career in biopharma is a long one, hopefully. So being careful about not overpromising is an important thing. I know that we have more questions. I saw one here. Should we take that one now?
Hello, thank you so much for this panel. Seriously, it's a great panel because it's bringing to us today. My name is Jared. I'm from Mexico. So this panel is bringing to us today academia, biotech, pharma, and venture capital. So I'm interested to hear your point of view regarding with the next sentence. When promising science fails to translate into real-world impact, is the problem more often the science itself, the leadership, or the capital, or in this case that you were talking about, the vision and execution?
Great question. Any takers? We get everything in that question. You know, is it the vision? Is it the execution? Is it the technology? Who's up for that?
No, I actually, this is a great question. I don't know how to answer that, actually. So there is great science everywhere. That's number one. Number two, unfortunately, there is great science with no follow-up, no product, nothing out of this. Why? And there is multiple reasons for that, of course. But again, it's again about the visions. So we need science to develop. I'm talking about the pharma industry, of course. We need great science to understand the pathologies, to understand mechanism of actions. If you bring a new drug, so this is important. But this is publication, if I may, to make it very short. A publication is not a product. A publication is not a patent. So there is multiple reasons for that. What maybe is missing from time to time, not always, but from time to time, is this link, and that was mentioned before, this link between the innovation, meaning the publication, to make it short, from the academia, and the capacity to transform that into an innovation for multiple reasons. Lack of trust, lack of knowledge, actually. There is a lot of universities pushing their students, actually, to set up their own company. There is other places where it's not the case. So I think it's difficult to answer to your question, but there is multiple reasons for that.
We have more questions, so we'll take two more for now, and I'll then kind of move on to a different theme. Let's go to that section of the room now, the lady here.
Hello, I'm Angela Yang from the USA. So I actually work on the external innovation side for the Allen Institute. So we are more spinning out companies. And I think on this previous question, what I see is that we have solid science and solid founders, but the operational plan and selling that operational plan to founders is where a lot of scientists kind of flounder. Because they don't have the CRO connections already, or they don't know what steps and timeline they're going to do for pre-IND or to get to IND. Mm-hmm. So I guess from the perspective of pharma and biotech and investors, what is the right step for them to take? Is it to get involved with a serial founder who has done this before and has taken a product from IND to in the clinic, or is it lean on the fund to kind of provide you with those people who know how to do it?
I believe this is what they call experience, right? I continue to see quite a lot of decks from companies, and people are very often non-realistic about especially the time of development and the resources it's going to take, and then they go to see investors and they are not credible. So this is really, I agree with the statement by Marina earlier that we have a problem in Europe and in France of working between biotech and the academia, etc. But if we can do that correctly, if the science comes from academia, but you cannot develop a drug from academia. So if people realize that, they understand that you need to have access to people who have developed drugs, who know regulatory affairs, who know what is going to be a tox program for your program, more simply. And then people work together under a leadership of people who have done it before already. And then in the US, why is the US so successful in biotech, in Boston, in San Francisco, etc.? Because they have so many people who have done it before. They have those serial entrepreneurs. And they have this ecosystem between investors, academia, and people, biotech people, who have done it all together several times. You know, this is, you go to Cambridge in Boston, this is very impressive. They build 10 companies every day, or anyway, exaggerating. But they know the recipe because they have 50 years of experience. It's still a beginning in Europe. Now we begin to understand that investors have really paved the way in Europe over the last 20 years. Now you can build companies with enough financial resources, provided you show them that you assemble the right team. And most of the failures in the biotech industry, this is a team. An inexperienced team can kill a good product. It's very easy. And a good team, it's not good or bad, it's experienced team is able to rescue a product because, or simply you need to, the product is not good or bad. The product is the indication also you're pursuing. So you need to position your product correctly based on the differentiation, etc. So it's mostly about the team. Then you have real failures that happens, but I would guess that most of the failures of biotech companies is because of the team is not experienced enough. But this is maybe overstating.
I completely agree. I mean, and that's, I mean, when I moved to biotech, actually, I spent a lot of time with successful CEOs to understand actually what makes successful companies, successful biotechs. And you can, and I've learned that you can have the great science, you can have the great capabilities, the great funding, and yet fail. And it's very much about what you said, the experience and mindset, and having always option in your mind. Too often, I see people who are guided by the direction and not the destination. So it's very much about, in everything we do, making sure that we have optionalities, that in case this fails, we know actually how we can pivot quickly.
Yep.
And that requires a mindset, a very, very different mindset that, based on my experience, I've seen is really common to successful entrepreneurs.
Oh, we have Marina with your raised hand. I'm sorry, Marina. I noticed now the yellow.
No, I'm sorry.
The yellow on the screen. Go ahead. Thank you.
No, it is. I apologize not to be able to be present in person, but I would like to completely disagree with the last sentences, where he said that biotech fail because the person that are in are not expert enough. I completely disagree with this because we can fail because there is a rapid change of mind in the investor and biotech. For example, in our field for rare disease, it has to be a rapid change between ex vivo ATMP and the promise or in vivo ones. So investment very rapidly stopped to invest in ex vivo technology, whatever the ex vivo is, saying that everything go to be in vivo, so we can shorten the period of the development from 6 up to 8 years at 6 months. So this type of change can be responsible of failure of a biotech, and they can be also realized in other fields than ETMP.
Thanks, Marina. I think this is an interesting point around, you know, the things that may not be in your control with regards to timing. You know, the external environment may change, the funding environments change, the IPO windows close, the you know, interest rate change, and that impacts on how you your ability to get funding. Regulation sometimes changes, supply networks change. So every now and then, you do have to, I suppose, you always have to be aware of the external and what's not in your control and pivot. And we've started talking about, you know, how to do that and how to do that well. Maybe I'll go back to you, Thierry. Like, you know, as you've led quite a few biotechs, I'm sure it's not always, you know, the path was not always rosy and, you know, with everything working. And experience is very important, it's one thing, but, you know, with that kind of experienced team, how do you make sure that you execute well as things change? Like, how do you make sure that you stay aware and informed on the external, and you don't just react, but you preview and pivot at the right time?
Yeah, I think Fabrice said it. You always need to consider a lot of options. You're here as a manager in a biotech to build options for your investors, for your shareholders, for your board. If you just have one option, in terms of development, in terms of financing, in terms of M&A strategy or whatever, if you just have one single option, there's a good chance you're going to hit a wall at some point. So you have to multiply options for the financing, for the drug development as well, and you have to be ready to adapt and to pivot we needed. I just remember of you don't change your long-term vision, but you have to that drives your strategy. But you need to be able to adapt your strategy. And the very first company I've built had a very, very nice product, very nice science for a product from University of Rotterdam and University of Torino, a product that had a potential for obesity and type 2 diabetes. And it was very nice. But at that time, the reality, I had a hard time to finance the company to pivot from phase 1 to phase 2. Why? Because at that time, it was not the GLP-1, the incretin times as now. I could finance this company now. But the industry, the pharma industry, was not interested in that kind of product. And if the pharma industry is not interested in the field where you want to go and the indication you want to develop, you're going to have a hard time to find investors who are going to come into your company. So it took me 1 year to understand that I had to pivot. It took me way too much time, and finally developed the product for Prader-Willi syndrome, which is a rare, very severe, rare genetic obesity syndrome, a rare disease. And I could finance the company, and we had positive phase 2 data, and we got acquired. So yes, you need to be able to adapt your strategy, always find options, and you're even better if you prepare your options before, so you don't take too much time to change after. So we stop here.
Yeah. So you know this. To your point, you know, Fabrice and Thierry, optionality is very important, and building that optionality in so that you can react whether to the external environment or internal data. I would like to go to Jacques now and understand a little bit, maybe from this example of Sanofi, you know, undergoing a big transformation. I'm not going to call it a pivot, but a big transformation in terms of an increased focus on immunology. And at the expense of some of the other therapeutic areas. How do you execute, that sort of transformation within a big, complex organization like Sanofi?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think vision execution, as I mentioned before, I think this is interconnected, of course, and you cannot split actually the execution and the vision. As a big pharma or as a big organization, but that's the case for other organizations, not only in the pharma industry, you have to transform and you have to implement your vision. So we went through a multiple transformation actually within Sanofi over the past 5 years or 2 years actually, but one of them was related to AI, so I can comment on this if you wish, but also another one on the change in our portfolio. So we were pretty diverse actually. We had a portfolio pretty diverse with oncology, with cardiology, with actually obesity actually products under development, vaccines, and few others. And that was decided actually 3 years ago, to refocus actually what we are doing in not 100%, but at least a significant part of what we are doing in immunology, immuno-oncology, immunoinflammation, vaccine, which is another way to look at immunology, neuroimmunology, and others. So that's a big transformation for a big pharma because obviously you have to articulate the vision, and that's the role of the boss or the CEO and the board, and that was done actually for multiple good reasons. And then you have to implement and execute this. And this has multiple consequences. Number one, you have to explain to your people. So internally, you have to explain that externally, because when you are a listed company, of course, you have to explain why you are changing and what are the reasons why. And better for you to be prepared and well prepared when you are facing the street or the investors. But also internally, you have to explain to your people, because you have competencies in different fields, so you have to retrain, reorganize your organization. You have to refocus your people. You have to really change, adapt your footprint, because there is some technologies which are not adapted to what your new vision, your new strategy. So it's a big change, and you can have multiple examples like that in other big pharma. So Sanofi is not an exception at all. The bottom line is that you have to be prepared. You have to look at the wide range of the spectrum of all the transformation that you have to manage, actually, and it's related to your capital, to your people, to your training. I think you have to retrain a bunch of people. There is social aspects. There is obviously you go back to your the capital ventures and say, okay, by the way, we are much more interested in this area now than in others, which is from some colleagues very difficult to understand, but I have a very nice product in this field. So you were in cardiology. Why? Because this is no longer our strategy, and we want to be focused on something else. So that's a large transformation. It takes time, so you cannot do it overnight. That's number one. Number two, you have to explain again to the external environment and to your internal team. And that implies a plan, and a very detailed and structured plan. So it's all about execution. So when the vision is articulated, of course, you have to execute it. And it works, but it takes time. So as maybe in this room there is future managers in big organizations, I think this is really something you need to plan, and execution is key.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack. I don't know whether we have any reactions. I know that we've had some more questions in the room, so I think we're going to go back to maybe these questions just to make sure that we answer some of those for you guys. Maybe at the front here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'm Lucas. I'm from Brazil. We actually work in the first venture building in biotechnology in Brazil, human health and agriculture. And I could spend an hour here with each one of you. We have flagship executives in our board. We have a project ongoing with Sanofi in vaccines that we're trying to get it to work. Rare diseases, ODDs that we got from the FDA. But we invest in scientists, and we help them build and found their company. And Brazil has no ecosystem for that yet. We're trying to get it to work. But my question, maybe for Jijal, we're talking about scientists that go all the way to the in vivo university usually. They don't really have visions acumen. And until when can we hold on to this person as a main executive or a a CEO, when should we look into hiring someone from the market? And perhaps even, is there some sort of protection that you guys use on when you invest, when you're in a board, so some veto for up to this point, we have to pick an executive from the market. How do you deal with that? And if there's been any case of unsuccessful changes or founders, scientific founders that didn't want to leave the company, or how did that go for your experience?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think so. At Sofinnova, I think there was a question earlier from another institution. So actually, the creation of BioVelocita is meeting a demand from the market that we have a lot of scientists in Europe, in particular, and then they want to stay as a scientist, and they are very happy to do R&D collaboration with the company they incorporated, but they have either no bandwidth or no interest to step in as a management. So not necessarily the postdoc student either. Then it creates a need, but investors, most of the investors cannot be operators. In fact, they are not operators. They've never operated any companies. They're professional investors. So then that comes to your question, right? So at Sofinnova, we have been seeding companies for a long, long time. And then the past paradigm we've done, indeed, is the first one you've said. Let's go back to some of the repeat entrepreneurs we know, or people that we like that in our portfolio companies, and maybe explain the project, then they can step in as an interim COO or CSO or CEO as you wish. So that still works, so that investors stay as an investor. And then what we do here at BioVelocita is that all of the investor partners at BioVelocita also take interim CEO roles in all of the companies we have invested, because we will then streamline the process of decision making, and then we build strong connection and relationship with the founder. And then to answer your question directly, we do not see ourselves as a long-term CEO because we will go back to the 0 to 1 process. Therefore, so we wanted to hire professional CEOs once the science, quote unquote, has been de-risked, and then we go back. So at Sofinnova, I would say, we can meet all kinds of contexts and situations. If you're a founder, you say, I know someone who is willing and who has started taking a CEO role, then we can invest directly as a classical investor. But if you are much earlier, you needed brainstorming, you needed support and make the plan, or speaking to CROs, and all of these operational things that may or may not be boring for most of our scientific founders. And these are real industrial efforts. And then interfacing with CROs, getting quotes, and then planning activities and all these things. But also IP and filing and all of this. We will take it in our incubator fund. So that's what we offer, actually. So I have to say that we are meeting a lot of the scientists all over France and also in Europe and even outside Europe, because people needed something like this. Perhaps it could be useful for you in Brazil.
And maybe Fabrice, I'll call you out here because you've been the CEO of Celarity. You joined that kind of emerging biotech as when it was a platform biotech with a very early pipeline, and now you're a CEO of a company with much more mature assets. So maybe back to your question, what makes, in your view, a good leader for each one of those companies, at slightly different stages? Are there any differences? And then maybe, again, to make it a little bit bigger of a question for you, how is it executing when you lead an early stage biotech, an advanced stage biotech, and then pharma? Like what are the differences between good leaders and that execute well within all of these different environments?
I think that there are major differences between large organizations like big pharma and biotechs. I don't see that many differences within the biotech. I mean, although, as you said, obviously, the team dynamic and what at stake may differ, whether you are in stealth mode or whether you are at commercial stage. Yet Yet when you are in biotech, speed is the essence. When you are in biotech, it's very much about speed and ownership. It's about how making good decisions fast. It's about how owning those decisions. You cannot hide behind others. You're going to see the impact of your decision, whether it's positive or negative. If it's negative, as Thierry said, you pivot. If it's positive, you progress. But you cannot hide behind committees and a very heavy governance process, like in a large organization. Speed is important. I mean, personally, in a very humble way, when I moved to biotech, I had the feeling that I had to grow new neurons, as I'd been trained for 20 years to make perfect decisions slowly. And now I had to make good enough decision quickly. And it's a very, very different, it requires very different neuron, in my opinion. And so making quick decision doesn't mean making bad decision quickly. Everyone can do that, obviously. It's making good decision quickly and knowing that your decision is imperfect because you don't have all the data at hand to make a perfect decision, and therefore you're going to have to course correct. And so being ready to course correct at the time already where you make the decision. So it requires some real agility. I think also whether you are at commercial stage or whether you are in stealth mode, you have to learn not to be afraid to be afraid. I mean, in biotech, it is not about incremental growth. It is about transformative growth. I think transformation has been a word which has been mentioned several times by my fellow panelists and panelists. And so here it's learning not to be afraid to be afraid, aspiring big, and deliver. That has been my experience, at least.
All right, we don't have that much time left. I'm going to go back to the audience. There was a couple more questions in the middle. Wait, raise your hands again. I think we have some in the back with some waving. So let's go there.
Who was it? Susanna, are you picking one?
Oh, sorry, the lady in a white shirt.
Hey. Hello, my name is Camila. I'm from Ecuador, and first of all, thank you for your insights. And my question is based on your experience. Beyond the technical aspects, what qualities do you look for early-stage biotech companies before deciding to support them, for example?
I can try to answer that question. I think coming back to one of the comments I made before, and I'm talking from the pharma industry perspective, so this is not the same story here, but from a pharma industry, our objective is to bring innovative solution to patients. End of the story. So it takes ages and a lot of money. So when a startup, a biotech company comes to us, the first screening process is, okay, is it going to save time, to speed up our processes, and it is going to bring actually that innovative solution earlier. So that's really a first screening. So if you translate that into practical, so this is about risk actually. We are taking risk, or we are trying to minimize the risk. Again, when you decide to bring a product into our portfolio, you know if it flies that this is going to cost 3-4 billion euros or dollars. Okay, so that's a lot of money, and it can fail overnight. So what we are trying to do is to de-risk this process. And the way to de-risk it is when a startup is coming, or a biotech, or with a techno solution, or with a product, is okay, is there an opportunity for us to speed up the process, because longer it takes, more expensive it is, or to de-risk. And there is multiple ways to de-risk the process. AI is one of the tools we have today which is able to de-risk the screening, for example, if you are at a very early stage, but in clinical development, there is very innovative solutions coming and say, oh, we can develop something which is going to design differently your clinical studies, and then you de-risk your clinical study or your clinical program. But the de-risking is a key piece. And of course, a solution which is able to speed up the process is important. So that's the first screening. It's not the only one, but at least this is important. So when you are a startup, when you are coming, knocking at the door of a big pharma company, this is an important element that you have to keep in mind.
One more question, gentleman at the back in the middle.
So good morning, my name is Brian. I'm from the Philippines, but I work in Japan. My question, I would like to address this one to Marina, because I believe that nothing beats the wisdom of experience. And for someone who is navigating between the industry and academe, it's like a bizarre love triangle. You need to satisfy two lovers, the demand of the ivory tower and the demand of the market. So I would like to ask, was there a situation in which you need to choose between the two? Pursue a blue sky research, which you might know doesn't generate ROI, or pursue a topic which can generate more ROI, but at the expense that you pursue something which you love, like knowing basic conundrums and answering them. And what lesson have you learned from it that you would like to share to the LOTs who share this kind of predicament?
So thank you very much for your interesting, great question. So to avoid to make any wrong decision, what we did is to sell to a biotech our R&D part, but keep with me the clinical application of our strategies. Because I understood at this moment that investment funds were not interested in the so-called rare disease or ex vivo treatment, but I am profoundly convinced that our technologies is disruptive because immunology is everywhere in our in rare genetic disease, but also in cancer, but also for aging. So I am trying to fund with academic fund my clinical project to bring the idea further. And I am still in contact with other investment funds in the United States or Australia, maybe to refund a biotech around our technology. So I don't know if I have completely answered your question or your point. And also I try to make a collaboration with Stanford, with another biotech that is involved in vivo therapy by off-the-shelf product. So maybe at the end of my journey, we can have a fusion with other biotech, but maintaining the scope of my life, it is bring innovative therapy to rare disease patient that is a very largest population around the world. And probably we are in very active momentum where we can realign, as I said before, industrial point of view and academic ones. So.
Thanks, Marina. I think you got a thumbs up, so thanks for answering that audience question. As we're coming to the close of the panel, I would want us to touch upon, building the right team, executing with the team, getting the team bought into your vision. And Jacques started talking about how important, it is to bring the team onto the transformation journey, as you work on those more complex transformations within pharmas. I think I'll go to you, Thierry. You know, from your experience, how do you, and you know, just kind of hands-on, active stuff, you know, and active kind of, you know, tangible advice to the audience. What tactics or strategies do you use, you know, in your life and in your companies to get the team bought onto the vision and to get the team execute to their full potential? What do you do?
This is motivation and alignment. These are the two most important things when you manage biotech companies. There are two phases. The first phase is the phase where you have 5 to 10 people. This is an early startup. Then the CEO is a project manager, and you don't have a hierarchy or whatever. You have the CEO, and you have 5, 10 people that are directly reporting to him. This is the way to go. This is the commando strategy. And then this is a time where you don't realize at that time, but you begin to build a culture in the company. And then the company grows. Then you're lucky enough, when you're financed enough, you hire executives who each, whatever they do it much better than you do. Otherwise, you don't hire them. And then there's the one who drives the operations. And whatever this is with the board, your investors, and your team, especially your executives, you have to spend a lot of time to talk to them, to align. Because you have your long-term view, this is where you go, and you can have very good ideas to go here or to go here. And then either you lose time or you lose the soul of your company. And that takes a lot of time to interact with everyone. And finally, don't forget that we are very lucky to be in the biotech industry because we work for patients. And this is one of a unique situation where if the patient gains something, I mean, there's a product for them ultimately, there's everyone benefits, including your investors. So, I mean, this is very virtuous circle. So if you work for the patient, and in terms of motivation of your team, hey, this is easy. Anyway, you have to make sure people understand why they are in your company. And please share your passion and your empathy. That's very important. The two most important qualities for me of a leader.
Great. We have 5 more minutes, so I'm going to take one more question from the audience, and we'll close it off with a quick fire round for the panelists. For the final question, I don't want to forget, I've been taking questions from the middle of the room. I think I'm going to go to the right side, the gentleman at the very back.
Hello, everyone. This is Giaf, based in Barcelona. Thank you very much for the discussion. This is perhaps more of a drug development question for all of you, I think. So how much of the biology do we need to understand to move a preclinical molecule to forward? So to give you some context, we've discovered a molecule with weight loss potential, but we don't fully understand the mechanism, but our idea would be to move it forward. Thank you.
Maybe I can start. I think, again, it's about the risk, because if you want to develop a product, if you have a better understanding of the mechanism of actions, you remove a bunch of risk, actually. And again, keep in mind that, I don't know, it depends how you count, but 95% of the products in clinics are failing, so it's a lot. So again, the key driver is to de-risk this. One way to de-risk this is to have a good or better understanding of the mechanism of actions, because from there you can obviously take actions or stop your product, by the way, because if you understand better. So this is for me the typical area where you can partner with the pharma industry actually to better understand the mechanism of actions. Because there is some limitation that you can run if you are a very small organization, or if you are in an academic environment. So this is difficult. modeling simulation. There is a lot of things you can do actually to better understand the mechanism of actions, but it's actually pretty expensive, and so it is important. It is extremely important. It is more and more important to have a better understanding. That's for sure. So the question for me is when do you start this activity to go into deeper into the mechanism of actions? But the sooner the better.
Right. And I know that we have more questions in the audience. I hope that you as our panelists can stay for a touch longer. Some of you at least after the panel, and we can kind of discuss the additional questions. I'll just close off the panel with a quick fire round. So please limit yourselves to one sentence each. This is going to be a tough one. The question is not the most straightforward, but for everyone in this room trying to figure out their own path right now, what's one thing you wish someone had told you before you took your leap? And what I mean here is before you decided to move from academia to VC, before you decided to start your own biotech, before you decided to move from pharma to biotech. Let's start off, and Marina, before you decided to launch, right, to move the program from academia to biotech. Let's start with Joel. One sentence.
One sentence, okay.
Short one.
I would like to share with everybody in Chinese, there is a word called 危机. The first character means crisis. The second is opportunities. So I think hopefully I convey the message. So whichever choices you're making, please use the best crisis as the best opportunity yet in your life.
Jack?
Listen to your guts.
Nice and short. Right, Marina?
So if you have enough trust on your discovery, go ahead. In any case, successful or failure, it is a great experience to have.
Fabrice? I think we have a touch more time if you want to give it a little bit more color. But
I said it earlier. I think what I would love to know is to learn not to be afraid to be afraid. So you can take risk and aim high.
All right, and we'll finish with Thierry.
I'll go in the same vein. Now you have taken 90 minutes to listen to us. You take a lot of time to learn, to listen. It's very important, but you have one life. So enjoy it, do what you want to do. Don't listen too much to what people tell you. Go. And then you're happy when you're old.
All right, well, thanks so much to my fellow panelists. I hope this was good for you guys and interesting, and a quick round. And thanks to you guys. Thanks for the excellent questions, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day here.